Oh, really?
Yeah, and the fellow that put together these questions here also wrote the liner notes to the album.
Oh, there's liner notes for the Japan one?
That's right. Well, that's just a custom here. The albums will have liner notes, and they'll usually have a lyric sheet and a Japanese translation of the lyric sheet.
What's the liner notes about?
To tell you the truth, I haven't read them. But the journalist at Rocking On Magazine is the guy who wrote them.
Oh, cool.
So I guess what they usually do is they base it on your bio. They write about the songs and whatever they've been told by the record company, and their own views and whatnot. These questions might reflect what he's written in the liner notes. So maybe if we play Sherlock Holmes here, we can sort of determine what he thinks about the band, because often the questions will sort of give hints and reveal the thoughts of the journalist.
Right.
I'm just sort of the go-between. I'm an interpreter, and have been faxed this list of questions here. So with that in mind, I guess I will.
So are you in Japan?
That's right. I'm in Tokyo. I'm as you can tell from the accent, I'm American, but
Yeah.
I've been here about 15 years here.
Oh, wow.
So my entire adult life. And
Cool.
actually, you're still very young, aren't you, Ben? It says you're 17.
Yeah, I'm 17.
Wow. I just talked to the guy in Silverchair about 2 months ago, and he was only like 15.
Yeah.
Are you guys doing something to the kids there in Australia? What's going on?
I don't know. It's pretty weird. Like, we were around quite a bit before Silverchair. There's not many. Like, yeah, I don't know. It's just weird. Just a little.
Well, the thing is, I mean, it doesn't really happen in the other places. In like America or UK or other artists I talk to. Nobody is under the age of. They're usually not under their early 20s.
Yeah, I guess I don't know. I guess it hasn't really happened here before either.
Oh, really? Okay.
But it's not like a regular thing. But yeah, I don't know. It just happened.
And where are you right now? Is this your home?
Yeah, I'm at home.
And where in Australia do you live?
Sydney.
Oh, I see. Okay. So you're born and raised in Sydney then?
Yep.
Okay. All right then. Well, let me get down to this list of questions here. When did you first start writing songs? How old are you?
When I was 10 years old.
And like, what kind of songs were they, and what sort of instrument were you using to write them?
Guitar. Just when they were just pretty easy songs, when I knew 3 chords. I just wrote. Yeah, I can't even really remember. It was just bad songs,
Is that when you first started playing the guitar, or had you already been playing for a couple of years before?
No, like as soon as I learned a couple chords, I just started writing songs.
So were you a serious listener of music at the time as well?
Not really. Like, I don't know. Like, mainly, I guess I always liked music, but I don't know. I was never really like when I was little. I guess I don't know. I liked radio stuff, like when you're just growing up. That's all you hear.
Were your parents very musical? Were you sort of inundated in music at home?
No, we have a piano. That's about it. No one plays it or anything. It's just, I don't know. Just happened like that.
This guy's asking here, about the impulse to write music, like how sometimes people start writing music as an outlet, for frustration or for a feeling of elation or joy or whatever. In your case, I guess the music just came rather naturally. There wasn't any sort of emotion.
Well, I don't really remember. In the beginning, like, I just did it because that's what I thought you do. You just play an instrument and you write songs, and so yeah, I guess that was just like. But now it's different. Now when I write songs and like I play live, it's like the only time. I don't know. That's just what makes me really happy, And like, that's what you just know, like, when you hit on something, that's like what you're meant to do. Like, when I'm playing live, just like, that's when I know, that's when I feel most, like, alive, So I sort of can't live without it. Like, yeah, it's pretty weird.
It's what you get the rush from right now.
Yeah, exactly. So
how about when you write? Is it the same feeling, or is writing more of a tortuous process where you just kind of have to grind it out and?
Well, in the beginning, now it used to be really easy. Like I'd just have like a million ideas and I just write lots and lots of songs. But now I don't try and force it as much. Like I used to think if I didn't write 5 songs a week, I was like losing my touch.
Mm-hmm.
But now I haven't written a song for a couple of weeks just because mainly I'm missing a string on my guitar. And I don't really think it's like a big deal. Like I don't know. I want it to happen like more naturally. I'd rather have I've already this in 1 year I recorded 2 records with like 15, 20 songs each, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I just rather make the next things I do like a bit more focused, and I'd rather just try and make them a bit more quality based, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. Yeah.
To write so many songs, though, you must be very prolific, or are you writing a lot of songs that sound like each other, or?
I don't know. Now I reckon I'm writing better songs.
Mm-hmm.
And well, when you first start playing an instrument, like you've got an infinite number of possibilities, and just the more you go on, you just lose some of those because you've done them enough times, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And so like I've written all the songs I can with like those 3 chords that I learned in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
Now I've just got to move on a bit, and yeah, so I don't know. So it's not that I'm like slowing down. I'm just trying to move on a bit, you know.
Yeah. Well, when artists develop, they often talk about the developing the courage to sort of toss songs out. You know,
Yeah.
In the early days, I guess you sort of clutch on to anything that you're able to write, but then after a while, you get to the point where you can judge things a little more rationally.
Yeah, like sometimes I just think like people don't do that enough. Like I'll hear a song on the radio and I just go, man, if I wrote that song, I'd just like leave it at the bottom of my pile, you know. Like I'd never like record that. It's such a crap song. But
you can now immediately identify the B-sides, huh?
Yeah, you just like I don't know. You just know. You're just a bit more focused. You know. You know what you want to do. You know what you're looking for. You can tell pretty much straight away if you're onto something or not.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
In the writing process, or you know, in the process that involves creating the music, do you think there's any? Is there a conflict going on in you? Are you trying to work? Are you trying to? How can I phrase this? Is there a conflict with reality? First of all, I think you're trying to write music to come to grips with reality. Is it your way?
Well, yeah, the conflict is mainly like there's one song on the new Noise Addict record, and there's a line in it like, just got to concentrate on living my life and not on writing it down. Because like sometimes like you just feel like the only reason you're living is so you have something to write about, and like it shouldn't be like that. And so it's hard. The conflict is finding the balance between living and recording that life, you know. And sometimes you go too far to one side, and you just find you're just sitting at home all day writing songs, or you haven't written a song in a year, and you just got to find that middle ground where, yeah, it's just like there's no point writing a diary all day if you don't go out and do anything to write about, you know?
Oh, I see. So it's possible to fall into the habit of vicariously living life through your music.
Exactly, and you just become over-analytical, and like you're writing about things that really shouldn't even matter, and you just don't have a life. So you just got to find that middle ground, you know?
Well, maybe that's why you haven't written a song in a couple of weeks, or even bothered to replace the string on your guitar there, because maybe you do think it's healthy now to kind of remove yourself.
Exactly. You just gotta just live a bit, you know. Yeah.
It's interesting that a band like Silver Chair, for example, should play the music they do, but then again, grunge was there, I guess, when they first started listening to music. Does this category of grunge mean anything at all to you?
What it really means to me is, like, I'm not... Like, I like a lot of those bands that are called grunge bands, you know, like I don't know if you want to call Nirvana that or something. Like, that was, like, one of my first concerts I ever went to, Nirvana, and that was, like, that just blew me away and was a big inspiration on me. But mainly, the thing it means to me is that, like, my generation has grown up with so-called, like, independent or alternative bands as rock stars. Like, mainly the generation before, it was all underground. Now it's not underground. And I don't know, I just think that's a really weird thing, that like something so sort of subversive and anti-establishment is so much part of the establishment. And that's all I really think about like that. Like, I don't know, I just think each band, like, separately, like, that sort of genre doesn't really mean anything to me. Like, I don't strongly identify with flannel shirts and not washing or anything, you know.
And there is, by definition, a sort of pursuit of loudness in that kind of music.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's obviously, that's a part of you, but at the same time, I guess you would be more what we call lo-fi.
Yeah, maybe.
And the journalist here notes that lo-fi eschews loudness in favor of concentration on the song. You know, the purity of the song.
I don't know. Well, I think like a lot of the times what people call lo-fi is just people that don't have much money to spend on their recordings. Like, like I couldn't really believe it. Like when I was in America making, I don't know, I was doing something, and like I went on this like TV show, and they were saying how they had this special on lo-fi the week before, and someone like brought out the Noise Addict Young and Jaded record and goes, this is like the perfect example and all this, and like we didn't like set out to do anything. Like I just recorded it on my tape recorder. That's all it was. It's mainly like, and I was speaking to, you know, Lou Barlow from Sebadoh.
Right.
I was talking to him about it, like about lo-fi, and like when like people sit down at their 4-track recorder, you're trying to make it sound as good as possible. It just so happens that it doesn't have the means to make it sound like a Michael Jackson record. But if you could, you would, you know. And like, I just think it's weird. Like it's more like I think it's more like a journalist thing, like lo-fi. I think there's not really many bands that sit down and say we're going to be a lo-fi band. It's just resources.
Right.
Yeah.
But then again, a Sebadoh, you know, does have the financial means to make it sound like a Michael Jackson record.
Yeah, I guess.
Or at least they can borrow enough money for the time being to make it sound like that. But still, it's very stripped down, raw, unadorned. You know, very few overdubs, etc.
Well, you know, like when I listen to their record, like I wouldn't really call that a lo-fi record. Like it's pretty big sounding, you know.
They even have strings on the last one.
Yeah, like I don't know. Sort of like a part of the imagination of rock journalists.
Okay, good enough. So we'll toss out the term lo-fi for now. How about okay, this is going to overlap with what we were talking about before, but since the question is here, I must ask it. What artists do you think comprise the backbone of your sound?
Well, like I don't know. Like as far as I haven't really Noise Addict with the new Noise Addict record. Like we recorded that in last June or something, and like I haven't really written like a rock song since then because we're not going to record another record, and so I've mainly been writing my own stuff. So, but with the rock stuff, it was just, I don't know, it's just all that sort of, it was just rock, you know. Like it didn't really have any. It's just everything and nothing were influences on that. That was just getting together and being a loud band and having songs and stuff. But my acoustic stuff, like I'd say, like a lot of like folk and country people, like Loudon Wainwright and I don't know, Johnny Cash and a whole bunch of people like really influenced me with that because it's like power through acoustic music, you know.
Right.
But and Jonathan Richman and I don't know. There's a lot of people. And I used to think about that a lot, like, oh man, this song sounds like someone or whatever. But now, no, I'm a bit more confident, like, of writing songs. I don't know. Yeah.
Well, so the quick answer is these songs are me. There's other artists.
Like mainly those kind of influences come like in your like whatever formative years when you're like listening to lots of records and like before you start writing songs. So it would have probably been like, I don't know, like all those radio songs like Tiffany and like bad disco stuff, 80s disco stuff. But after that, I reckon you sort of like already like you've already like developed, and you can't really help what comes out of you. Yeah. Like, yeah, someone said to me the other day, like, I was just at home playing a whole bunch of like hip hop records and like funk records, and they go, it's so weird, like you like all this stuff, and but you write this like just mellow acoustic music. And I just said, like, I can't really help like what I write, you know.
Right.
I doubt I could really write a very good hip hop record because it's just not my soul, you know. And so yeah, I don't know. That's about it.
Yeah. Well, actually, there was a very famous quote by Frank Zappa, who, you know, when an interviewer showed surprise that he listened to like classical music and other kinds of music, you know, Zappa came back with, well, what? When you eat, do you eat nothing but fried chicken? You know, people like different things, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Now, the interviewer here talks about artists like a Bob Dylan or a Bruce Springsteen, the artists who sort of deliver their own perspective on changing times, on confused times. There's sort of a tradition of this. What do you think of artists like that? Maybe he sees something in common.
I don't know. I don't really listen to that kind of stuff. I got like a couple records, but mainly like it's way more like personal for me. You know, like I'd rather. I think you get like a bit. There's like a danger of being like I don't know, like you're saying something and people expect it's meant to like speak for them also.
Oh, I
like,
see.
I just write like what I see, like, and I write about things that, like, just worry me or whatever, and I don't know, like I don't do big social commentaries or whatever.
The idea of being a voice of a generation doesn't appeal to you, huh?
Well, it can happen like on a personal level. Like if you look at that whole thing with Kurt Cobain, like he was just writing like about his own problems, but so many people identified with it. But as far as writing like political songs or, you know, I don't know.
The guy also mentions here like there are artists like a Beck or a Liz Phair. First of all, do they appeal to you as just a listener?
Yeah, I like those guys, and I think like that's far more like, I guess in a way though, that's like the 90s version of Bob Dylan or Bruce Springsteen, you know? Or like Joni Mitchell or something like that, because
it's
like the 90s, like politics is personal, you know? And so that's sort of like, in a way, like I can see like how a Liz Phair record is like far more political than a Bob Dylan record or something like that.
In what way? How
just because like things she challenges personally do represent a lot in our society, you know? And so, yeah, I guess in a way it's just less straightforward. It's far more subtle in the way that like it comments on our times. But I don't think like she'd be like want to be labelled like a spokesperson for females or something. So.
But she's still making a valid statement nonetheless.
Yeah, it just happens like that. But people, I think nowadays, don't really go out of their way to try and speak for their peers.
Well, Beck was saying something to the effect of, you know, the aim of his music is to sort of put a twist on reality, you know, present it in a slightly skewed, slightly strange way. Your sound as well, to use the words of the interviewer, is sort of like an alternative blues, which might also share something in common with that.
Yeah, maybe. I think more like I'm still like sort of. I don't know, I think like the thing I've always admired about Beck is that he just does like whatever the fuck he wants, you know? Like you listen to his records and it's just insane, because he doesn't care sort of, or from what I see, like he doesn't care like about what anyone thinks. He just does what feels right. Where like I think what I do, it's not a really good thing. Like it's a lot more self-conscious, you know?
Right.
And like I don't really like that, like about how I write. I can't help it. Like because it's, you know, it's just a scary thing, like to have courage like Beck does or something like that, to just do whatever. But I think like, but those sort of things like develop. Like he's just been playing forever, so
maybe you want to be a little more focused though.
I just want to have a bit more just courage to just, you know, try different things. And it happens slowly, but it just happens over time. Yeah.
Now, I guess you guys were on the Grand Royal label?
Yeah.
And which was sort of the house that the Beastie Boys built. Is that the Beastie Boys, are they an act that you've always enjoyed, or?
Yeah, like you know, they're a hard band not to like. But I like, not really musically, like, you know, but I mean, like, they're not like an influence like on me musically, but as far as like, yeah, they're like one of my favorite bands, and
so
it's a really cool thing.
It must have been quite an honor to get onto that label.
Yeah, it's pretty weird. Like that, they've got a pretty like mixed like label, whatever agenda or something. Like all those bands are so different on that label, but that's what's really cool, I think. And like, yeah, it's just like they're like one label that's never going to be like typecast, you know. Like, it's not like you'll say you're on Grand Royal and people will assume you're like one sort of band or another, because there's like us and then Luscious Jackson, then DFL, and the Moist Boys and Beasties, and everything's so different, you know. So that's really cool.
It's a song about, it's a question about, I guess, your lyrical content. There's often this theme that pops up in other people's lyrics about how, you know, the singer of the song, the central figure, he's talking to somebody else about how, you know, you don't understand me, or you've never made any efforts at understanding who I am or what I am. In your case, it seems to be, it seems to start out with the assumption that people are not going to understand you anyway. Does that make any sense at all to you, that assumption?
Yeah, in a way it does. Like, I don't know. I've never really like heard anyone say that, but like now I do. Like, I can see where they sort of get that from. It's just, yeah, I don't know. I guess it's just part of that whole like just being a self-conscious thing. Like, I'm not. I don't know. Yeah, I can't really say. Like, I can't think of it. I can't articulate what I'm thinking here.
Yeah, well, maybe this would be my take on it. I think when he talks about an artist, you know, complaining about somebody not understanding him, maybe that artist is taking himself too seriously, whereas maybe the person who assumes he's not going to be understood anyway has the upper hand, because that person is not necessarily taking himself seriously, but he. Yeah,
well, I guess there's a certain element of that it's just pop music, you know. Like, I realize that, and that I'm not about to like. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Yeah.
Okay, so this idea of miscommunication is just not maybe.
Well, I'm having a big trouble with miscommunication right now, actually. So you can see it's very prominent in this life.
But does that theme ever crop up in your lyrics at all? Miscommunication.
Well, I just think the inability to communicate properly is like a big theme in like overall just not being able to. But often it's like an inability to like communicate with myself, you know. About how like I don't really know what I want or why I want the things I want, and yeah, it's just that confusion basically.
Here's a specific example of one of your songs. There's a song called Love Song.
Yeah.
And this guy sees it as a very new approach to a new concept of a love song. I guess you talk about how boys around the world are all writing a song to the same girl, to one girl, or.
Well, the lyric is every boy in the world writes a song for a girl for every girl in the world.
Oh, I see,
Yeah.
And he really likes that phrase. I wonder what it is that makes this seem like a new kind of love song to him.
I don't know. Like, well, the idea for that song came from reading this interview with Tom Morgan from Smudge, and he was talking about how like he's just like he's so embarrassed about his songs that he just writes really dumb songs. Not dumb, but like just about silly things and like joke sort of songs because he's too scared to like put his real feelings into songs.
Mm-hmm.
And that was like how that song started, like about, you know, can't get it happening to write a love song. I always bring in rock and roll. I always bring in dumb stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then I just thought, like, it's sort of like even a love song doesn't really have to be. It doesn't really express that much about you because everyone in the world does it.
Mm-hmm.
It's sort of like such a cliche, you know.
Right.
I don't know. I don't even know what I really meant. Like, it was so long ago.
But
I sort of like, I just make up things, like, when I talk to people about it. Like, I do mean it, but I sort of don't know if I really meant it at the time.
Uh-huh.
The things only make sense to you later.
Right, right. But maybe when you try to write about certain subject matter, you feel like it might sound a bit too stodgy or a bit too serious, so maybe you write something a little more novel.
Well, it's true. Like, it was just like a statement. I don't think I really actually meant anything by it. It's just every boy in the world writes a song for a girl.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't have to mean a song. It's just everyone's sort of like helpless in the end, you know.
Mm-hmm. Here's a question where I think we step off the deep end here. It's kind of a conceptual question on how can that be?
Yeah.
It seems to feature a lot of different metaphors. Contain a lot of different metaphors, and this guy is reminded of Douglas Copeland.
Oh, right, yeah.
You know, the author?
Generation X guy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And he seems to be reminded of this concept that people of that generation sort of given up the idea of what's the question here?
Yeah, I know what you're thinking. I know what he's saying already. Like, because when I think about, you know how there's this huge trend now, people calling things like grunge authors and that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and like I was reading one of those books. I think it was that, you know, that Bongwater book.
Right.
And like I was reading through it, and it was just like there was no like beauty in the language.
Mm.
It was like telling a story to a 5-year-old. That's all it is, and like it was just so cynical and jaded. It was just the facts, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And like that's like what, and like it makes me so sad. That's what this generation's meant to be about. There's no like beauty in life. There's no like no one. I don't know. No one really wants to like. There's no like beauty in the language. There's no nothing. There's just nothing. And so like yeah, I sort of see that. Like it's like I guess it's trying to. I guess it's kind of different. Like to the whole like Generation X slacker thing, but that just really bums me out because it's just that's not how I am, and that's not how my friends are, and like yeah.
At the same time, I guess maybe the flip side of that coin is that maybe there is this sort of overwhelming feeling of cynicism.
Yeah.
But the aesthetic side to that is people sort of try to give that cynicism form in their art, and they try to make that cynicism into something valid or even something that can be appreciated.
Yeah, but that's like what we were talking about before with like people who just sit at home all day doing nothing, trying to write about life. There's nothing to write about. They're not real experiences, you know? Like, yeah.
But I guess what he's trying to get out here is something that you consciously try to get away from.
Like the cynicism and that?
Yeah, you want.
Yeah, like my songs are just about like they're just like diving into life. Like I'm really like a big fan of, you know, John Keats, the poet, and all that kind of like romantic stuff. Because it's just about living and like just like taking ups and downs with life and just learning from them. And like nowhere in my, like, you know, there's one song called Frigid on the record, and it's about like how like I just got really fucked up by this person, and I don't regret it. Because like there's just like experience is valuable for its own sake, and that's what my songs are about. They're just about living and just trying to get as much, milking life for what you can get out of it. And that may be bad or good, but just taking it.
On the song My Guitar, you talk about rock and roll as a sort of release, I guess.
Yeah.
And what about rock and roll leads you to feel that way?
Yeah, I can't really like explain. Like that's what I was saying before. Like I just know that it just feels right for me. Like a lot of the time, I think I'm really happy, but then when I get up and I play, like it's just above, like way beyond any other kind of happiness I feel in my life. Like it's just so cleansing, and especially when I play acoustically, like I just feel like it's just like so cleansing, like spiritually, and it's just the most beautiful thing, and that's just what I love about it. To like just pour like all yourself into it, and sometimes you get nothing back, but for me, like it's worth it anyway.
It's not necessarily rock and roll, but just the music.
Yeah, well, for me, like it's rock and roll, but I can see it happening for any kind of music or art or anything, you know. And you're just so on the edge when you're up there. You're just, you know, you don't know how people are going to respond to it, but you just do it anyway. It's such a scary thing, but it's great.
I see. Okay. Let's see here. We've got 3 more questions left. Which to go from? Okay, you're among musicians right now. You would be the youngest, basically, as we talked about
Except
before.
Silverchair.
Pardon me?
Except Silverchair.
Right, you've got a couple of years on them,
Yeah.
which would make you, I guess, early 20s. You'll be in your early 20s at the turn of the century. Do you think there's anything about your situation generationally that makes you fortunate or unfortunate, just by dint of the fact that you are the age you are?
Yeah, I do. I don't know, I think like there's a lot of like, I'm very naive about a lot of things, which has led me to be sort of like, I guess just foolhardy, you know? But like I've done a lot of things that maybe in 5 years I won't have the guts to do, that have benefited me, just because, just out of stupidity basically, you know? So like I've just jumped into things that perhaps I shouldn't have, but that have benefited me in the long run. And so that's just what's good about being young. You don't think twice about things. But on the bad side, like, I don't know, like, it's sort of like I've sort of seen, like, too much for my age in a way. Like, I just feel like I've lived, like, a million lives already, you know? Like, I really, like, that's why, like, I love, like, I don't know, like, I just feel like I have trouble, like, relating to a lot of people who, my age, who are very, like, it's not like I've been, like, a junkie on the street or anything, but, you know, I've toured around the world, and I've met lots of different people, and I've just, like, seen a lot, and sometimes I just worry about being, like, jaded when I grow up, you know? But you just have to wait and see, hopefully.
How about in terms of, like, the age you're living in? Do you think it's different for you now than it would have been, to say, for a 17-year-old musician 10 years ago or 20 years ago?
Well, you know, like I said, like, I don't really like, there's, like, cynicism and all that kind of stuff, like, boredom with life, like, I don't really like it, but on the other hand, maybe that, like, sparked what I do, you know? Maybe subconsciously, like, what I'm doing is, like, a reaction to that, and the reason I have such a, like, enthusiasm about just everything is because of the age I'm living in, so you can't really tell, you know.
Actually, you know, that might be something you share in common with a lot of people your age. I think that the cynicism thing may have been blown out of proportion. Yeah,
I think, like, I've read, like, stuff with, like, Beck, where he was saying, like, you know, people call me a slacker, but, I mean, I go into the studio, I work 13 hours a day or something, and, like, I work harder than a lot of, like, you know, office executives and that. And I think a lot of people take too much on appearance, you know, and, like, if you look at the real facts about a lot of these people that are meant to be, you know, leaders of the Generation X, it'd just be crap.
Okay. Noise Addict. You guys are going to have a new release, I guess, in '96 as well. I mean, there's going to be an album released in '96.
Maybe, yeah, 96 in Japan, I think. And we're coming soon.
I see. This, I think he means the follow-up to the one that's already over here now.
I don't know what's there. Like, I don't...
What was the last one released? The last album. What was the last album you made?
We haven't really made a full album before. We've had EPs and stuff. But maybe there's a single out or something.
Oh, I see. Okay, so I think what he means is the full album. The full album will be...
Okay. So the full album, it will probably be out in '96, and we're coming in the end of January to play 3 shows.
What is the album going to look like, you think? I mean, how does it compare to the EPs thus far?
Well, I don't know. The only thing I can really compare it to is my solo album, and I think like it's very different to that. Like, it's sort of got the same vibe off it, but it's different. Like, I think if people really like my record for what it is, not for the hype or whatever, like, stars endorsed it, then they'll also like the Noise Addicts record, because it's got the same, like, feeling in it. But it's a rock record, you know, it's like full band, fast, kind of punk pop songs, and I think people will dig it, you know.
And lastly, you guys will be opening for the Beastie Boys in '96? Yeah,
and we're doing 2 other shows also.
What are those?
I'm not sure. Like, we haven't got, like, the itinerary yet.
What about your live performance? What's that going to be like?
Well, to tell you the truth, we haven't actually started practicing yet since we made the record. So I can't tell you, but judging by past, like, experiences with what we got a new guitarist, firstly. And, like, so it's going to be very different. But in the past, basically, Noise Addict shows have been amazing or just shocking. But hopefully, by the time we come to Japan, we'll have been on tour for a month. So we'll be pretty tight and tired.
When I talked to Luscious Jackson last month, you know, they came here. They had been touring with the Beastie Boys, I think, throughout Europe. And they said rather euphemistically that it's a somewhat challenging slot because Beastie fans are not the most patient people in the world. I don't know though. We're only doing 1 show with them, basically. Oh, they're right.
So, like, I think it'll just be mainly a fun thing for us to do, play with them. But I don't know. Like, what are the crowds like in Japan like with that?
Well, it shouldn't be as bad as they were in Europe. Maybe the Beasties often attract a sort of rowdy element.
In Japan too.
It might, maybe, but I would say even if they're rowdy, the Japanese don't tend to be as rude as Europeans might. And I think that they're, a little bit more open to others as well.
That's okay. We're pretty rowdy live. So we should fit in.
You can satisfy their rowdiness and next there.
We'll meet them inch for inch.
I see. Okay, well, Ben, I think I got what I need to get here.
Okay.
And I thank you very much, and once again apologize for the late start.
That's cool.
And maybe we'll catch up with you when you get here.
Yeah, I'll see you in January then.
Okay, and remember this was for Rocking On Magazine, and again I'm Steve Harris.
Okay, cool.
Okay, well, nice talking to you, Ben.
Yeah, you too.
Okay.
See ya.
Bye.
When I was 10 years old.
And like, what kind of songs were they, and what sort of instrument were you using to write them?
Guitar. Just when they were just pretty easy songs, when I knew 3 chords. I just wrote. Yeah, I can't even really remember. It was just bad songs,
Is that when you first started playing the guitar, or had you already been playing for a couple of years before? No,
like as soon as I learned a couple chords, I just started writing songs.
So were you a serious listener of music at the time as well?
Not really. Like, I don't know. Like, mainly, I guess I always liked music, but I don't know. I was never really like when I was little. I guess I don't know. I liked like radio stuff, you know, like when you're just growing up. That's all you hear.
What he thinks about the band, because often the questions will sort of give hints and reveal the thoughts of the journalist.
Right.
I'm just sort of the go-between. I'm an interpreter, and I have been faxed this list of questions here. So with that in mind, I guess I will.
So are you in Japan?
That's right. I'm in Tokyo. I'm as you can tell from the accent, I'm American, but I've been here about 15 years here.
Wow.
So my entire adult life. And
cool.
Actually, you're still very young, aren't you, Ben? It says you're 17.
Yeah, I'm 17.
Wow. I just talked to the guy in Silverchair about 2 months ago, and he was only like 15.
Yeah.
Are you guys doing something to the kids there in Australia? What's going on?
I don't know. It's pretty weird. Like we were around quite a bit before Silverchair. There's not many. Like, yeah, I don't know. It's just weird. Just a little.
Well, the thing is, I mean, it doesn't really happen in the other places. In like America or UK or other artists I talk to. Nobody is under the age of. They're usually not under their early 20s.
Yeah, I guess I don't know. I guess it hasn't really happened here before either.
Oh, really? Okay.
But it's not like a regular thing. But yeah, I don't know. It just happened.
And where are you right now? Is this your home?
Yeah, I'm at home.
And where in Australia do you live?
Sydney.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah.
So you're born and raised in Sydney then?
Yep.
Okay. All right then. Well, let me get down to this list of questions here. When did you first start writing songs? How old were your parents? Very musical? Were you sort of inundated in music at home?
No, we have a piano. Mm-hmm. That's about it. No one plays it or anything. It's just, I don't know. Just happened like that.
This guy's asking here, about the impulse to write music, like how sometimes people start writing music as an outlet, for frustration or for a feeling of elation or joy or whatever. In your case, I guess the music just came rather naturally. There wasn't any sort of emotion.
Well, I don't really remember. In the beginning, like, I just did it because that's what I thought you do. You just play an instrument and you write songs, and so. Oh, really?
Yeah, and the fellow that put together these questions here also wrote the liner notes to the album.
Oh, there's liner notes for the Japan one?
That's right. Well, that's just a custom here. The albums will have liner notes, and they'll usually have a lyric sheet and a Japanese translation of the lyric sheet.
What's the liner notes about?
To tell you the truth, I haven't read them. But the journalist at Rocking On Magazine is the guy who wrote them.
Oh, cool.
So I guess what they usually do is they base it on your bio. They write about the songs and whatever they've been told by the record company, and their own views and whatnot. These questions might reflect what he's written in liner notes. So maybe if we play Sherlock Holmes here, we can sort of determine